All right, there he is, Nick. Did did you really not see a link?
Yeah, I did not. And I wanted you guys to wait a few minutes to build up the anticipation. I figured, if I made you wait 5 to 6 minutes on Christmas Eve for me, it would just further solidify my greatness. Did it work?
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Yep.
Good.
Yep.
You know what
So
else I
jacked.
love is that sweatshirt, dude. You know I was gonna say something right away about it.
Have you never seen the Joshy Josherson?
Never.
Yeah,
Is it not new?
I've had it for quite a while, but I have such depth in my fashion roster that I'm not surprised you haven't seen it. But yeah, it's definitely one of my favorites. I wish you would have adopted the moniker Joshy Josherson. I think it would have
Yeah,
fit you well.
Where did
probably.
that come from? What is that?
What is that? That is a good question. I think he's actually one of our four listeners. So hopefully he's smiling as he hears this. But I have still never met the man, the myth, the legend. But I now have a sweatshirt from him. I have a koozie from him. And he lives in Wyoming. And he's what it sounds like is a great fisherman with a little bit more of like a walleye slant and a little bit of bass. But the eastern part of Wyoming is kind of largely trout and walleye. But he builds his own lures. He's got a cool spoon, and he's like, catch a bass on this so that I can have a picture and prove that these things catch everything. Well, he should have gave it to one of you guys because that would have happened a long time ago. I have yet to do that part of it, but I've got a lot of cool swag and the koozie, he just makes me smile. He's got a good sense of humor. I know this is a family podcast, but the cooler has like an animated graphic of a guy holding a net, and it says "Get the, effing net." And we've all
Nice.
had a good laugh about that one over the years about the
Yeah, it's actually
excuses,
yeah. You
dude. The
actually
excuses
have.
that people have, like the weigh-in when their non-boater was eating a granola bar and they didn't get the net fast enough for a 2 pounder.
That's right. It's easy to blame your partner. Well, dude, yeah, that's cool. Maybe we haven't seen it, Rob, because we live in Arizona and we seem to record this in our garages where it's
That's
very
a
rarely cool enough to need a hoodie. So
Yeah, that's a valid point. I was just thinking this morning as I was putting a hoodie on how we're just acting like it's winter here.
yeah, I mean, honestly, though, we do have one of the colder weeks of the year. Finally, our lakes around here are in that winter mode. Over the last couple of weeks, I watched that temp that was just hanging on to 60 forever get down into the mid 50s. And, we're seeing some true winter fishing, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Yeah, we've got quite a bit going on this holiday season, guys. Nick is just coming back from a trip to Lake Bacharach. I'm sure it was a very interesting one. He caught a ton of fish. We're going to dive into that in a little bit. Not only did he catch a lot of fish, he was battling a pinched nerve, dude. Something really bad going on with his back, or pretty bad going on with his back. Um, Rob's been doing some hunting, and I've been doing some prep. So before we dive into Mexico, though, what's been good with you, Rob?
About the only fishing related thing I've done is I'm still building the garage right now. We got some bunch of walls framed up yesterday and just moving along with that project. I can't wait to get that finished just so I've got a spot for my boat, and hope to make it like a pretty cool, like fishing man cave type situation. So, um, yeah, we've been doing a ton of hunting. Good friend Alex and his wife Jen have probably the premier whitetail tag in Arizona this year.
Oh,
Wow, dude, I didn't
Yeah,
realize it was
it's
that good.
oh yeah, no, it's like a very sought after tag. Takes close to I don't know, I think it's 10 or 12 years to draw it with bonus points. So it's a hard tag to
Wow.
draw. Anyhow, Jen shot a really cool buck a few days ago, and Alex is gearing up to get after it after Christmas into the new year. So we should be fun. So
Beautiful. Yeah, it's
yeah,
did you
awesome.
guys
yeah.
did you guys have a crazy pack out again? Did you shoot it from like 3 miles away and have to lose 1,400 feet in elevation to get it?
It wasn't that well for me. It was nothing because I volunteered to sit on the glass because we shot it in the evening.
Okay.
It was a pretty good poke across a big canyon. They had to go all the way down the road and hike out probably close to a mile on a ridge and then down to the deer. But I kept my binos on where the deer was dead. Uh,
Okay.
and they had headlamps on. Alex, Jesse, and Jen went over there. They had headlamps, and as soon as the headlamps got into my binos in the dark, I knew
Uh-huh.
they were close,
Nice.
and just kind of walked them into where the deer was. And I didn't realize it was going to be that far in there. And my intentions were for Les and I to pack up and then go in and help them. And it took them so long to get in there. They're like, we'll be done and on our way out before you guys even get here. So just hang out. So we ended up hanging out, and we didn't get back to camp till it was close to midnight. So it was a long evening, but well
Yeah.
worth it. Absolute slob of a deer. It's like, I mean, most people not in Arizona listening wouldn't really understand, but these Coues deer are, generally pretty small deer, but this thing was big bodied and just a really cool rack. So, but
What grows them
Amazing.
bigger in that area? Is it like a better diet, or is that just an old gnarly 1%er?
yeah, it's an old gnarly 1%er. And what happens this time of year is, um, a lot of those deer, I mean, there's hunts in there. October, there's a hunt with 250 tags. November, there's a hunt with 250 tags. There's archery tags, unlimited archery tags for the most part. Come December, these big bucks come crawling out of these little cracks and holes and deep canyons where you don't see them. They're very nocturnal early in the season, and then the rut is just starting to kick in a little bit to where the bucks are getting close to the does, and that essentially is what killed this buck. I mean, he would not have done what he did if it wasn't for that time of year. So
The
just
eagerness to
yep,
procreate.
yep. So it just that's what makes this tag so sought after. It
The timing.
the timing, correct? It makes you're just hunting. You're not hunting a specific buck because
Right.
you have no idea what's going to come walking in front of you. Come like the October, November hunts, the guys that spend a ton of time in the woods, they probably have a little more success because they'll find a buck in the summer that's in velvet, and that buck won't move. Generally,
Okay.
it's going to be within 100 yards, or not
100
100,
yards. That's so crazy,
in a
man.
small area. I mean, it could be in a just on a mountain. Might be on one side one day, on the other day, but it's going to be in a small area. And if you can find those bucks, they're pretty easy to
Take care of when it's
find
time.
again, right?
Uh-huh.
Where this time of year, that buck that's holed up in that one
Random.
spot like that, yeah, they're just, which I enjoy that more. I mean, so many people know exactly what deer they're going to kill. I mean, from anywhere in the country, like guys with trail cameras in the Midwest, they're like, oh yeah, I'm
They have
waiting
them
for,
named.
yeah, I'm waiting for the split G2, and yeah, Brutuses are coming around the corner. It's like
Yeah.
they know exactly what deer they're hunting. And I think there's a little bit of little fun in not knowing what you're hunting. So anyhow,
Yeah.
yeah. But
Very
enough
cool.
deer rant for a fishing podcast. What's going on with you, Josh?
Oh,
You know
well,
what?
yes.
Also, we need to cover the tournament too, so I'll let you
Yeah.
go over that. So
Yeah, Rob and I did fish a tournament together about a week and a half ago now. So, anyways, glad to hear the hunt went well. Props to Jen and Alex, and hopefully Alex has another cool story like that coming home after this week, and he can finish off 2023 with another great deer, man. But yeah, I've been doing a lot of fishing. It's been, for me, December is a great month because I'm at home enjoying the family and doing a lot of fishing here in Arizona. As soon as you turn the page into January, it just hits the fan for me. I intentionally don't book any guide trips. I don't book any commitments in January because it just stuff starts popping up right away, and for traveling and different preparations and stuff, and it has. So I've been enjoying the last bit of just regularity for quite a while, and the trips have been decent. Had more good trips than slow trips, that's for sure. It is wintertime, so we've had a couple slow trips, but I mean, slow trips are 6, 7, 8 fish, something like that. Had a couple last good numbers days. Rob and I, we were going to go fish Lake Pleasant for a tournament, and then man, we ended up seeing that there was one up at Roosevelt the same day, and it was like, yeah, we can't pass up an opportunity to fish Roosevelt. It's just it's more of our I guess we both like it a little bit
Preference.
better than Pleasant. It is our preference. We love Pleasant, but been spending a lot of time at Rosie, and Rosie, you know you're going to get burritos coming home. So no
And
matter
the
how the day
drive is
goes,
so much better too,
That was
man.
pretty much the
Driving
only
to Pleasant.
factor.
Oof.
well, yeah, I drive into Pleasant during the week. You know, for us living in the East Valley, you're going to drive basically
So much
through the
traffic.
worst traffic
Yeah.
on the way home for sure. Now, even on the way there, if you're going to go pre-fish, but on the way home for sure. Now it is the weekend, but you still deal with closures and stuff like that on the freeways in Arizona this time of year on the weekend. So, anyways, we picked Roosevelt, and it was fun, dude. We ended up catching one of the smaller checks and getting a little bit of option money too. So 15 pounds won it. We had 11 and a half. It's funny right now on Roosevelt. It's really hard to get those big bites. And that's always the challenge in tournament fishing. But back-to-back weekends up there, there was a 100 boat tournament and then a 50 plus boat tournament. In the 100 boat tournament, 4.7 was big fish. In the 50 boat tournament, 4.4 was big fish, and it was the only 4-pounder weighed in.
Oh,
Wow.
It's like, dude, it's
wow.
really hard to explain how out of all those
Yeah.
anglers, no one runs into a big fish, and there are a lot of 2 to 2.5 pounders biting. I mean,
Wow.
realistically, it's all the same age fish, and they're all set up and biting. You know, whether you're down spooning, the jig bite's getting good. We caught all of our fish on jerk baits, pretty much, right?
Yeah, all of our wave fish came on a
Yeah.
jerk bait. So
Yeah, we caught a couple spoonfish as well, but the jerk bait deal was the best deal for us. But yeah, pretty weird to see how all these 2 to 2.5 pounders will bite, and you see a lot of weights between 8 and 12 pounds. And it's really hard to get up above that right now. So props to the guys that had 15, but it wasn't like typically you'll see someone with a 6 or 7 pounder, or at least a couple guys. But yeah, what's your thought on that, Rob? Why are there no 5-pounders being caught right now up there?
I don't know. Roosevelt has always been so I fished Roosevelt a ton when we had the slot limit, and it seemed like fish class sizes always bite there. What I mean by that is back in the day when we had a slot limit, it was what you could keep them under 13. Was it under
Yeah.
13 and over 16? So
Yeah, that's right.
yeah. So you had a really good idea what size fish were biting, because all of a sudden, guys start coming in with limits of overs. And then you had time periods where you couldn't even buy an over. I mean, and an over was a 2.5 pounder roughly. And I don't know. I've never seen a lake like that to where fish class size am I saying that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Fish size class, whatever,
There you
just
go.
certain
Uh-huh.
size fish bite, and everybody is catching that class. And, I mean, we all know there's a huge, a big class of bigger fish in there. And it's
Yeah.
just, they're just not showing up.
Yeah.
What do they do? Are they out in the middle chasing bait? Are they, you would think with forward facing sonar now, people would be able to capitalize on that if they're out just, cruising around chasing bait balls, whatever, but doesn't seem to be a thing yet. So
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely done that where I'll focus on just pure open water and see. And we fished a lot of open water this
yes.
summer, a lot, or this fall and winter, I should
Yeah.
say, and it was good catching smaller fish. Seeing fish on live scope, and you throw it out there and you catch them up to 3 pounds doing that. But it's interesting, to me. I agree with you, and I guess to me, I always look at the bait, and it's like, well, clearly the bigger fish aren't biting. They're not in a position where they're accessible to fishermen, to most bass fishermen, right? Like when guys start running into them would be the spring, when all the big fish have to come up to spawn. So
Yep.
guys are going to collide with them, whether it's an accident or not, whether they're getting lucky or they know what they're doing. They're going to collide with them because they're up there shallow, and that's where the fishermen are fishing. And then, post spawn and through the summer too, like they get onto the easy structure to fish, whether that's points or humps or breaks off ledges. And they're positioned where fishermen, again, if a fisherman knows how to read a map and fish offshore structure, they're going to run into those fish. But it's kind of
I think
go
you hit
ahead.
the nail on the head with that. Those fish, I mean, just that size class of fish is where you can fish them right now. I don't think people throughout the country understand what that lake is like. There's salt cedars from 0 to 30 foot of water for the most part. And there's a lot of unfishable area of that lake. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. Such a pain to fish that stuff, right? Like there are miles and miles of trees and brush underwater, and some good offshore spots are nice clean bottoms, and they're easy to fish, and we do fish them. And then some are gnarly, right? And the challenge to them is, I think a lot of times the fish get really spread out because of the amount of options they have for places to sit. There's not really one reason for them to be grouped up in one spot. But I will say, I've seen a lot less gizzard shad lately, and that's my other thought is, like, wherever the heck there's a gizzard chatter at is where those big bass are at, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
In all the different types of areas and stuff that we've been fishing, I have not seen the gizzard shad flipping on the surface. I haven't seen them on my graph. And again, man, I bring up live scope 10 times a podcast now, but I've learned what they look like on live scope, and when you're around them and when you're not. And I haven't seen a lot of them lately. So kind of all over the lake too, wherever I've been fishing. So they're probably a lot of those big ones. I could picture those big giant fish being in groups, hunting in packs, like big giant striper. And especially when it gets cold like this, I could see schools of 20, 30, 40 giant bass swimming constantly in open water. And I saw a little glimpses of it last year when the bite was tough like this, and had a spot where they would show up. I would pull up to this spot, and 4 out of 5 times they weren't there, but 1 out of 5 times they'd be up on it eating, and you'd catch one, and all of them would follow it back to the boat, and you'd go, "Oh my God." And you'd never see those fish again for 3 more weeks. But I think that's probably happening in different parts of the lake. But yeah, who knows, man? I mean, these are all theories, but the bottom line is pretty hard to go produce a big fish out there right now. So,
Well,
anyways,
and then that big tournament, I'm sure, had a handful of the famous classic river Roosevelt anglers, right? So sometimes you wonder, like, okay, those guys are at least going to run into 1 or 2 giants and then maybe have a hard time putting a limit behind it, because that was what I was thinking, and kind of like what Rob was saying, a lot of that lake is unfishable. I know the river has some spots that get pretty deep and it's just choked out. So it's like, it's this fun part of the puzzle, right? You just wonder, but it's interesting to see that even those guys didn't crack big fish and then maybe only have like a 9 pound bag with like a 6 or something.
it's a great point. Yeah, like just typically that's a great way to catch a big fish out there. We've done it a lot ourselves up there in those rivers, and yeah, they just limited clones, dude. Limited 2 pounders. Very interesting. One of our good buddies was up there, and yeah, he experienced the same thing. So it's like,
Okay, so
whether
that was
you're
what
out there
he had, a
spooning
limited
in
clones.
40 feet, yeah, he's throwing a jig in 15, or you're flipping in 5, dude. You're catching 2 pounders
Two
all day, man.
pounders.
Yeah,
Oh, well, that's what makes it's kind of like what Rob was saying about deer, right? If we knew the outcome every time, I don't think we'd enjoy it as much. It sucks when you're not crushing it, but then it makes it that much more fun when you are crushing it.
exactly. And we're here at Christmas time complaining about catching a bunch of
Yeah,
fish. So
without an
it's
ice
pretty
fishing
good,
hut.
dude. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. But someone who didn't struggle on size last week was Nick, um, with the fish that he caught. So we've all been excited to hear about this trip. This was a little bit different than some of your other trips, right, Nick?
Yeah, man. It was just fortunate. I'm lucky and blessed that I get to do a lot of, like, traveling to places where the potential is great for something to be exceptional, right? Like, you'll read about it online, or like you'll see social media posts where like somebody went there and just has like a banner day. And so you get lulled into thinking that that's always what it's going to be, right? And so I've had a lot of trips now where I've traveled places with, reasonable but high expectations or anticipations. And then you get there and the weather's wrong, or you should have been here last week. The bite was better, or, next week is really going to, you just don't get it right. And this time around, I don't think there was anything that could have been more optimal for
Really?
success. It was just good, man. I caught the lake fishing unlike I've ever seen it. And okay, like I didn't catch one over 10, right? So if you're going to complain, you'd be like, well, what the hell? Like, you know what I mean? But you
And we're
can't
talking
complain with
Bacharach, right? You didn't. Nick went to Bacharach. Sorry to
correct.
cut you
Yeah.
off.
So no. Thanks for clarifying. So, and you had mentioned, I don't know what happened, but I tweaked my back and I've never had any sort of back pain in my life that I can remember. But for whatever reason, like I was laid up. I had a couple of days where like I couldn't get out of bed hardly and was bummed because I had this window of time open up in my personal life and everything in my professional life where I was going to be able to go. And I had been talking to my friends down there and they had been telling me that it was good. It's like definitely this is a good time to come down here. Everything's working and the weather's stable. It's good. So then that back injury came and I was bummed. I didn't think I was going to figure out how to do it, but I decided that, whatever, like worst case, you get down there and you just sit there and enjoy the scenery. At least you're there, like go for it. And so my dad had had his knee replacement and had had a lot of pain. And if you make a face to tell me to stop, I'll know not to go too deep because I know we always have a gray area about, you know, family friendly content. But in our quest to find
Where's
my
this going?
dad, yeah, to find my dad some relief, I went to a dispensary and picked him up some edibles to see if we could
Okay,
help
we're going
him.
too far already. Yeah,
Okay. And it didn't work for him at all.
not gonna offend me, dude, but I don't know. I don't
And
know how YouTube works, dude. So keep going.
okay. And so that was going to be my ace in the hole, right? I was like, all right, well, if worst comes to worst, like, because I didn't know what to expect. I took the bus again, and I think I'm done doing that. I'm going to do the flying and coming in the back way or something. But that was going to be my ace in the hole. I was like, well, if I'm just in so much pain, like, I can figure it out. So the drive down went really smooth. And the pain kind of let up. And I'm going to gloss over the exciting, funny part of the setup there because I don't know. Um, Needless to say, it was an adventurous bus ride down because I was flying at 30,000 feet and it just I got there. Okay, so I'm rambling on something that doesn't matter. I got there at like 2 p.m. on the first day and tired. I haven't slept any and just like yeah, let's go out there. I caught my first fish on like my third cast,
So
and it
you
was a
wait. So you bus to where and who picks you up and where?
yeah, so this time I went to a city called Guasave, which is like an hour and a half from where the lodge is, and then they pick you up. Like it's like full service. They whatever you need, they hook you up. So they picked me up in a really nice brand new Ford Expedition and had nice heated and cooled seats as needed all the way there, and living the life of luxury. You show up, man, like drop your bags out of the back of the truck, change into some fishing clothes, had the choice of a hot lunch or a sandwich and just start fishing right away. So of course, like I'll just take a sandwich and let's go. So I mean, within like 30 minutes of getting there, I'm already in one of the boats heading
Wow.
out to fish. So it's pretty sick, right? Like all the excitement and anticipation is building to this moment. And right away, man, like third cast, I caught like a good fish, like a 3.5 pounder on a rattle trap. And I was like, okay, cool. Because the last time I had been there, you fished hard all day for like 35 or 40 fish. And at the end of 3.5 days of fishing, my biggest was a 7. And there really wasn't a lot of, there's 4s and 5s, but nothing in that size class. So I was like, well, that's a good omen, like right away, catching one that's decent and like fights hard and everything's just feeling good. The weather's 81 degrees and not a puff of wind and blue skies. And nobody's gone by on a wakeboarding boat and no one's gone by on a jet ski. And you know what I mean? I didn't deal with a boat ramp or anything. I just like waddled down the bank. So 3 casts later, I catch a 6. So I've got 2 fish within my first 10 casts for like 9.5 pounds. I was like, this is good. Like I now I see why they're saying the fishing is good. Like it's good. Wherever you make a cast, fish in the bank, wherever you make a cast and you're like, there should be one there, instantly your rod loads up. You're like, oh, look there's a bush 4.5 feet in 4.5 feet of water, like 5 feet off the bank. I bet there's yep, that's a bite.
Unreal.
Unreal. Like, okay, reel in, take that fish off, throw back in there, reel past another one. You're like, oh, okay, and this one's, bigger than the last one. Okay, take that one off, throw out there a little bit to the right where there's a rock, bam, same. I mean, it was just like that, like
Amazing.
it crazy. So we
You
go around.
realize there's guys that fish down there that can never fish up here ever again after that, because
Yeah,
it's so exciting down there and so whatever you want to call it up here.
right. Like you just have to appreciate the struggle up here, and
Yeah,
down there, the struggle is your hands are tired.
it's
Right. You're
crazy.
like, I just kind of think I might skip casting for a second because like everything's hurting again.
What are they
But
doing
so
down there? Are they spawning yet?
yeah, caught quite a few
Okay.
fish that were spraying
Okay.
when you brought them in the boat, but it didn't seem like any of the big ones were. I feel like they were still in feed mode a little bit more than they were. We'd get on like some shallow stuff that was just like a good looking flat with a bunch of brush and different sized rock, and where they should have been really focusing, I would think, and it didn't seem any noticeably different. So there's some spawning going on, but I think it's also still just like feed bag
Yeah.
pre-spawn type stuff. So then he takes me around the corner. This is still the first day. This is within an hour of arriving. And he's like, okay, pick up your deep crank, right? And just like, there's a hump out there, throw at it. Like, okay. Boom, I bomb my deep crank out there, put the rod down and start reeling. And like 7 cranks of the handle, I feel it hit the bottom. And then it's like kind of in a tree. And then, it kind of crawls over and does that sideways kind of roll and then stops. And I'm like, oh, am I snagged? And then boom, I set the hook and the rod just like doubles like 3 times into a big head shake. I'm like, oh my God. And he's like, reel, reel, reel. So, I'm reeling as fast as I can. It's on the end of a long cast, right? So I'm reeling as fast as I can. And this fish just comes up and does like the classic like head shake tumble. And then I'm like, wow, that's a big fish. Reel, reel, reel. Get it to the net. And it's like a 6.5. I'm like, okay, cool. So it's in the net and flopping around. And I take my crankbait and boom, I throw back out there. Same thing. Reel 7 times, hit the bottom. Boom, just loads up again. Head shake. Dun, dun, dun. Good one, John. Bah. 6 casts in a row. It was like nothing smaller than 5.
Oh my
Biggest was an
gosh, dude.
biggest was an 871. And like that was that first ridiculous picture where I have 2 handfuls of like the 6 and this almost 8 back to back. I mean, one was in the net while I'm fighting the next one.
Oh my
It was
gosh,
just,
that's how you get a
like,
double there. Yeah.
dude, the deep crank can be magical, but you go so long before you find like the magic spot for it. And that hump was magical. I mean, I had 45 minutes probably there. Eventually it cooled off, but I mean, just ripping on them. Right. So the thing about that place that I'm learning too is that you have bookends. So the morning and the afternoon is sandwiches the rest of the day, but those ends are topwater time. Right. And that's what it's all about. So like, you have these magical moments where like the trap was working and the crank is working, but then it's like that spot was dying down and you look over your shoulder and you see shadows starting to form on the little hills and stuff. And it's like, okay, pick up a popper and go to the bank. And so my first half day there, that was what happened. I mean, the deep crank kind of died down and it was topwater time. I ended up the day I caught well over 40 fish in just under 4 hours of fishing. My biggest was almost 8 and numerous 4s, 5s, and 6s, top water, trapping, like everything. So I went to bed thinking that the first full day was going to be pretty good. Like I didn't even know what to expect other than just like it's going to be special, right? And it was, man, right out of the gate. The thing about that lake that has taught me, and you guys are more experienced and better fishermen than I'll ever become, I know, but I'm learning there that like things that I took for granted that I never thought would affect me tackle wise are become your Achilles heel. And like so for instance, I got lazy and I probably should have been checking my popper on 50-pound braid, but I just didn't even think about it. Make a nice long cast. There's a tree. I mean, just like the perfect setup, right? Like a broken bank going down with a tree in like 7 feet of water. And right when my popper gets to it, just an absolute monster, emerges, rolls over the top, explodes on it. Bam, I set the hook. And like instantly you can tell, it's a good fish. And then I feel it dogging down and it gets into a tree, pulls out of the tree, and I'm still on it. Again, gets into some brush, gets out of it. And I have it, come into the boat. It goes under the boat. I'm doing everything it can. And I did not, thumb the bail to give it some line. Dude, it snapped 50-pound braid like it was 4-pound test. Just pop, and
It's
gone.
funny how you can break 50-pound braid, but 65 seems unbreakable. And I say that all the time. And dude, 50 is already heavy for a popper. Like, you're not going to throw a popper on 65. Who knows what it was? But I don't know if you guys have ever experienced that. But, I challenge any listener to tell me a time that they got broke off on 65. But 50, it does happen, dude. It's
Heartbreaker.
big difference. Yeah.
It was a heartbreaker, man. It was a big one too. Like, I saw enough of it to know that it was like, it was, who knows? You can't say the difference between, once it's just the bigger class fish, right? So day 2 was some heartbreakers, but I ended up, honest to God, by the end of the day, I was like asking him, like, how many fish do you think we caught? Like, is 100 like normal? And it's like, yeah, probably. And it's like, man, I feel like maybe even more. I don't know. Like, it was just a great day. It was punctuated by nothing bigger than like mid-7, but tons of 4s, 5s, and 6s.
That's
So
so
the
fun.
next day, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. Like, let's just count. Let's just see. And so I was really catching them good on a medium diving crankbait. Like, that was completely out fishing everything else. Like,
Really?
you could throw other stuff and they'd eat it, but I had a crankbait that was just like,
What was the crankbait? Do you know?
yeah, it was a Rapala DT10,
Okay.
and had a nice, it's just whatever that natural green shad color was. And they were just dialed in on it, man. I tell you what, like, you could catch, there's some like 10 to 12 inches in that lake for sure. But you'd throw at a tree and catch a couple of those. And then the next time you threw at that tree, it was a 4.5 pounder, right? And like, I mean, my biggest fish on that crankbait was 770 something. I mean, like, it caught the big ones, it caught the little, it just caught them. And so that second full day, like, he's like, all right, let's do it, man. Let's start counting. So we counted every fish that made it to the boat. And by 9:45 in the morning, we had crested 100. By 12:45, we had crested 200. And I mean, I caught 50 on a topwater in the morning shadows.
Dude,
And
that's
then just
insane, bro.
So
That's the
then
dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah,
By
you're not making many casts without like.
if it went 3 casts,
Yeah,
honest to
you're
God, if it went 3 casts, I'd turn around and be like, F this lake, it sucks. Like, I want to go home.
Wow.
Like, I
That's
didn't catch a fish on 3
crazy,
casts.
dude.
4:45, I was at fish number 300. And at this point, like, I don't even know like how to like cast anymore, because it's just like that good. It's just
That's the
stupidity.
most mind-boggling thing I've ever heard, honestly. Like, that's out of all the Mexico stats, out of all these stories and trips, to catch 300 fish in a day counting, dude, is insane. Because I know it's real easy to throw numbers around and fishing here in the US, dude. Like, I've seen it with the every fish counts, dude, in MLF. Like, dude, it's hard. Like, you go to these best lakes in the country, dude, and they're getting pressured and stuff. And dude, 20 fish is a lot of fish to catch in a tournament day. 20 fish. Now we're talking 300.
And it could sound like I'm making this up.
I
And there's no way
believe it, because
yeah.
you did count, dude. I believe it.
And I will say the guide's thrown behind me, right? But like, the guide is hilarious. I love him to death. He's just like, when you guide at Bacharach, what makes you excited, right? Like, after a few casts and he catches himself a 5 or a 6, dude, he just like sits down and drinks a Coke. You know what I mean? And it's just like whistling a song and just like hanging out, because it's like, you already live in paradise. Like, what are you trying to prove here? So for sure, he caught his 50 or 60, you know what I mean? Cast in every 15 minutes. And then he'd be like, oh, yep. And then there'd be, dude, and his nonchalance is the best thing ever, dude. He just puts his tip down on the side of the boat and just winches him in. And there's like a 6-pounder thrashing on the side of the boat. He boat flips it. You know what I mean? Like, grabs it, takes the hook out, throws it over his shoulder, and you just hear a cannonball, and then boom, casts again. And you're just like, okay, like, if I ever get to that level of like desensitization, interesting. But so
Sounds
5
like
o'clock.
Minnesota fishermen, right, Rob?
Yep. Yep.
Just kidding. There's a lot of you guys out there. We love you guys, but the fishing's even not quite as good up there as it is down in Mexico.
But again, like, I've been on the struggle bus many times, no pun intended, right? This was just a magical one. So this day is coming to an end, right? And like, it's shadow time, the popper's in my hand, and like, I'm just spent. Like, there's just nothing, there's no more like expectations left. I make a long cast on a popper, fishing just like the most gorgeous looking vertical bank, and it lands right on a rock, and like 3 pops comes out to a second little rock outcropping, and just a massive explosion. Just gosh, set the hook, and instantly it comes up and tail walks, and it's massive. Stayed tight on him, tail wash again, stayed tight on him, get him to the boat and net him, 9-pounder. So fish number
Jeez.
325 was a 9-pounder on a topwater as it got dark. The final count was 327.
It's like Nolan Ryan throwing a 100-mile-an-hour fastball to strike out the last guy of a no-hitter, dude.
Dude,
That's pretty
like,
awesome.
I'm telling you, it's the second biggest fish I've ever caught in my life. I caught it on a topwater, and it was fish number 325 on the day.
Dude, that's more fish than you've caught in take
10
that
years.
day.
In
That's
10
more than
years.
you've caught.
Yep.
Yeah, probably since in a decade. Dude, that's
At least.
crazy.
At least. And I still had one
Wow.
more full day to go. Honestly, it was like, this is too much. Like, I feel like I'm using up all of my like stored, karma. I'm just gonna go home. Like, I don't want to like tempt this.
How are your hands? Is the guy, I mean, are you unhooking them all
Ruined.
yourself?
He's so good, dude. I feel like a baby, and I want to take my fish off because I feel like just such a loser. Like, you're running the boat. I'm fishing
if you
your
took-
spot.
Yeah, if you took 325 fish off by yourself, your hands would be destroyed, honestly, dude.
And my hands are destroyed, and I only took off 25% of them, right? But I mean, like, I learned like, okay, like certain reels are a little bit more comfortable than others that I own, and like I
Sure.
cranked hard on a reel that was not comfortable. I have blisters on every finger. My knuckles are swollen. Like, I got arthritis. Ain't nobody got time for that. Like, my left wrist is like, I look like I have like lupus. But fortunately, my back doesn't hurt. So the moral of the story is, go to Sinaloa if you want to fix a pinched nerve in your back, because new things will hurt and it won't be your back.
There you go, man.
So it was magical,
that's so
man.
cool. How was was it really busy at the lodge?
Yeah, that was the part that was terrible. It was just me. So I had my own
Really?
private lodge with like 6 staff members staring at me the entire time, wondering if I needed anything. Like, I can't make any of this
How?
up, man.
Why was there no one there, dude?
Probably because I'm so obnoxious. Once people knew that I was coming, they rescheduled. But I had the entire place to myself. It was amazing, man.
So is this the time of year to go? I mean, for our listeners that want to do a trip like this, is it mid-December? I mean, is it just a freak thing that it's that good? What's
I
the
think
story?
it can always be good. Last year I was looking at my phone the second week in January, and it wasn't like this. But who's to say? We would have to get one of those guys, to tell us more in depth, like really what it is. So maybe it's kind of the difference in like here where like, April or May is real hot, and then you start shouldering out of that and it's still good. So maybe December's kind of like peak season, but I don't know. I think I just got lucky. I think the lake is just healthy.
Good
Is
water
the lake
level.
high,
Yeah.
low. Yeah.
The water's high. I mean, it's probably like, I didn't ask, but it's at least, the high water mark's 7 feet down the bank. So it's got a lot of water in it. And the water looks so good, dude. It's clear. Like, it's kind of like a greenish tint clarity where like you can tell there's nutrients in it. But I mean, you can see down deep,
How
deep
deep?
enough that like
5 feet?
5 to 7 feet. Yep.
That's
Yep.
pretty
And
darn clear, dude.
especially like that main lake. Once we would fish like the main lake broken banks, it was clearer than that. I was getting excited. I was like, oh, I know they can see my top water from a long ways away, right? Like they're gonna seek it out. And that's what's so fun too, is that like, you kind of have to fish a topwater like that popper. They wanted it slower, and you'd be 2/3 of the way back to the boat thinking you're in no man's land, right? And like every temptation is to reel in, and like you turn the handle to reel in, and it just cannonball explosion on it, and you just start laughing because you weren't even ready. Like you were reeling in to start your next cast. So that fish came from somewhere, probably. I mean, I don't think it was just randomly there. So the water clarity was awesome, like really, really good.
How about weather? Shorts and t-shirt all day, or
Yeah, I'm a little wimp, so I dress warmer than 99% of people, but absolutely, dude, it's like a light jacket in the morning and then in the evening running back, and they let you fish from first light to the absolute last speck of light. So I mean, like, you just get to satiate yourself. Like you just feel it. You pull into a cove and like the weather's perfect. There's no other fishermen. There's no other pleasure boaters. It's flat calm on this huge lake. The sky is bad. I need to look it up. It's like Roosevelt size though, right? I mean, like it's a good sized body of water. So
20
like
miles long, maybe.
Yeah, probably right in there. And you look up the bank. There's not a house. It's just natural. The way it looked 200 years ago. Well, the lake wasn't there 200 years ago, right? But like you can just tell it's like pristine. there's just groups of tilapia exploding on the surface everywhere. I mean, like hand-sized tilapia are everywhere. When you're talking about gizzard chat a second ago, it's like, man, what a magical thing when you have large bait. When you have
Yes.
lots of big bait, good things are going to happen.
Yeah.
And like, it's just so special.
So you bring your own tackle.
Yeah, I rent rods there just because rods are so
Okay.
cumbersome to
So you
travel
bring
with.
your own reels in. And
Reels,
then what kind of equipment, what kind of boat are you in? Are you in the front of the boat? Are you in the back of the boat? Are they trolling, fishing out of a ponga or a bass boat? What is it?
no, it's cool. It's a modified. It's probably a 19 or 20-foot aluminum V-hull, and it's
Okay.
got a great casting deck on it with a chair. And I won't lie, I sat in that thing quite a bit, especially cranking. I was just getting my ass kicked. I'm old and tired, and so you're comfortable, and then it has a good Minn Kota Ultrex up front that the guide's using a remote on, but it's got spot lock and everything. And I've never seen it windy there, but it does get
Gotcha.
breezy occasionally. But you've got enough power to fish wherever you want to fish. And if you had a couple people in the boat, it'd start to feel small. But when it's just you or like one other guy, there's
Yeah.
tons of room, and like it's got a great 70 horsepower Yamaha 4-stroke on the back, and like it's just like what you need to catch the crap out of a lot of fish, right? Like it's
Yeah.
just not flashy, and it just works. And they
And
have a great little, go ahead.
and you're staying right on the lake and the lodge. The lodge is right on the water's edge.
Yeah, like the
Okay.
scenery from the
Yeah.
lodge is like looking into the main bowl of the lake, and it's
Nice. That's cool.
epic. And they have a good little store. You need to kind of like, I would encourage people to talk a lot to them ahead of time to buy stuff from like Tackle Warehouse or whatever that's specific. But once you get there, like they have enough to like cover you. But I put a lot more effort this time into like talking to him and knowing what to bring. Because last time he looked at what I brought and you could tell he was like, dumbass, I can't believe you like don't have the stuff you need. Like, why would you come unprepared? But that's just how you learn, and that's also my MO is being unprepared. So this time around I had like a lot better stuff, and it was a sad story, I will say, when my magic crankbait finally got lost at the end of the third day. I was, this thing has caught 400 fish at this point. Like it looks like a boxer, a prize fight boxer in the 11th round, dude. It's like
Yeah.
hardly any paint left. I was gonna take it home, take the hooks off of it, and hang it on my wall, and that was gonna be like my thing.
There's nothing cooler than a bait that is that chewed up, man.
And my clown colored deep crank caught a lot of really big fish, and I got to keep that one, and it is effed up, messed up. But so my prize fighter, dude. Oh man, I'm so done at this point, just happy. And I get it right next to a deep bush, and instantly, the rod loads up to like the fifth eye, and it just starts swimming to deep water. And it's like, oh my gosh, like so fun. And then all of a sudden, it just comes live, like, the line broke. Like, how did I've been checking. And once I had that popper heartbreaker, it's like, I need to make sure everything's perfect. And I reel it back, dude, and the lip had broken off. I had just the lip, and the crankbait was gone. So I was like, the crankbait just KO'd, dude. It just gave up. So
did you say you're going to
heartbreaker.
host a listener trip next December?
Dude,
Well, we
think
should
about
do
that.
it. We should do it. And I'll tell you what, we'll fly to Mazatlan, and then it's a 5-hour drive, but they have awesome equipment. I mean, dude, I was riding in a 1-year-old brand new Ford Expedition XL, right? So, I mean, there's like
Was
3
it
rows of leather
black and there
seated.
was like 3 others with it, or
Yeah,
no?
I wish, dude, because I deserve that kind of reception. But nah, man, so it's good. So we'll fly to Mazatlan, we'll do a listener thing. You two are gonna come. It's so fun. I don't suggest you eat an edible right when you get over the border
Hey,
and
we're
then
not
roll
talking
on the
about that.
bus. Other than that, though, just go for it. Just come with me. It's so fun. It's so good. It's yeah, it's something that'll keep a smile on your face for a long time.
That's cool,
Yeah,
dude.
it's hard to experience fishing that good. It almost impossible in the States, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's worth it. Take the trip. And honestly, it's affordable. Like if you look up at what Baccarat Lodge charges you, and then you think about like it includes food, it includes, like alcohol if that's how you roll, which isn't my speed necessarily. I mean, everything's included, right? Other than gratuities. And it's for that type of experience, you could pay 2 or 3 times that, think that would have been reasonable, and this is not. that expensive. So do it.
What's on the menu down there? Good Mexican food, or is it what do they do?
Yeah, they kind of cook to what your suggestions are. And like I wanted Mexican food. And so the food's insane. The first night it was like pieces of stewed beef in like a green chili sauce with like beans and tortillas and salsa and amazingness. And then the second night was I have to go back and look and see. I can't believe I'm forgetting the second night. The third night is a big New York strip steak
Nice.
with like a baked potato and like all sorts of great stuff. And then, yeah, you just eat like a king. Breakfasts are great. They'll give you a hot lunch if you want to come back and take a nap. But if you want to stay on the lake, it's just however you want it, man. Like they're truly in the service business. They just give it to
So
you how you want it.
so they don't do the lunch on the island anymore?
I haven't
Is that
experienced that.
okay?
Had
It
you
was-
What
had
was that, Rob?
It was literally 30 years ago when I was there. It was in 93, and every lunch was on an island. They would bring lunch out there and make lunch for you. It was incredible. But it was a big group, right? There was a bunch of us down there, so they would probably do that if you wanted it. So
Is
I
there a
think
break
so.
where you're napping? Like when I went to El
Siesta?
Salto, there was about a 3-hour break between the morning and afternoon session. Everyone would eat their lunch and then take like a 2-hour nap and then go back out.
Yeah, well, as long as you ask for that to be politely excluded from the
Yeah.
itinerary, they'll do it. But the first time I didn't know to ask for the special package. It's kind of like In-N-Out has a secret menu. Maybe it's
Yeah.
one of those things where it's like an animal style fry. But I was like, I'll just take a lunch on the lake, dude, and like we can just keep going. Like, oh yeah, no problem. And then
Your
I mean, the
guide
dad
is like,
caught.
F
The
this
guide's
guy, I
rolling
want
his
my
eyes.
siesta.
Yeah.
Yeah, you mother. Well, all he has to do is occasionally beep the button on the trolling motor, right? Like I can take fish off the line occasionally if needed, but it was great. So yeah, even the day though that I racked him, I sat down and ate a sandwich and looked at stuff on the bank because I mean, there's so much cool stuff to see, dude. I saw weird, random, exotic snakes like swimming across
That's
the
so
lake,
crazy,
dude. And then I had my back. We were in a cut, and all of a sudden I heard just like something like crash into a tree, and we both turned around and looked, and a hawk had dive bombed on a coot and got it, dude. Just bam, like killed that thing. He was over there picking it to shreds on the bank. Like I mean, like nature abounds. I didn't see any deer, but the guide tells me he hunts deer all the time at the lake, and like it's mountain lion country to the max. Every time I look up on the bank, it's green right now because their rainy season has been going on, so it's like jungly. And I think to myself, like, God, if I had to get up that bank and walk to the top of that mountain and like spend the night, like Steve Ranella style, I don't know what would happen to you. All the like things that would bite you and sting you. It feels wild up there. So I'll just stay on the boat in the lodge.
That's cool. Wow. Yeah. That is some wild country down there, dude. It's gonna be again, yeah. Like you did such a good job of describing all of it, man. It's hard to follow that with anything fishing related, right?
Well,
Dude,
it's just magical, right? So it's not even like that's just the required thing to say about it is it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, you went to Disneyland. Like, why are you surprised that Mickey Mouse was in a castle? You went there to see that, right? Like that's how that trip is. It's like you went there, like you could be like, we didn't catch a 10, right? Like that's the only thing you can say at this point. Like
Yeah.
every other expectation you
cares?
could have was realized. So it's just
Look,
like you went to Disneyland, you know?
if you catch a 10 down there, dude, it's probably better because like if you catch a 10 down there, it's like, yeah, I caught a 10, but it was down in Mexico. So I
Uh-huh.
guess it'd be better to catch a 10 than not to catch it, but it's still good
Yeah,
that your
easy for
best
you to
fish
say,
ever
jerk.
came from here.
Yeah, well, right, and the struggling that goes into catching a good one at a canyon feels a little bit more deserved than just like mindlessly going down the bank catching everything on every cast. So
In the
Yeah.
lodge, do they still have the records of the lake, like and who caught them and when they caught them? Because I remember that 30 years ago they had, I don't know if it was a book or if it was written on the wall, whatever it was. It was, talking about some giant fish.
I could have picked around a little bit deeper. I didn't, and I mean the pro shop has cartoonishly enormous fish on the walls, and
Gotcha.
the guy told me his biggest is a 14. So I
Gotcha.
mean, like it's who knows, right? Like it'd be interesting to see some kind of a fish study to see is it like OH Ivy where you have like high teeners swimming around in there, or is it like you get topped out, right? Like maybe don't they talk about that sometimes where in those places where bass have really high metabolisms and they're just burning hot and bright, they don't live a long time. And so like you reach a plateau of like 14, 15, 16. But to get that final like mass, they live a little bit longer, and maybe they're, I don't know, it'd be interesting. A biologist would be cool to interview and hear, like, when you have ideal conditions like that, what becomes the restriction on, growing a 20? Like,
Yeah.
is there a restriction
Yeah.
on it? Because they have a cool agreement. So the commercial fishermen, what time it is because they show up at 4 p.m. That's when they're allowed to set their nets, and they get paid to throw bass back. And so the commercial fishermen and the white people with money, whoever arranged that deal, looks like it's enough that like the rules are followed, so they must be compensated appropriately. So you can tell that like there's a level of conservation going on there that is protecting those fish, right? Like, I
It's
mean, like
clearly
there's,
working. Yeah. Like, I mean,
yep,
it's the proof is in the pudding.
because it's not like all the other Mexican lakes, right? Like he and I talked about that, like Wheaties and like the other ones. Like you go and you just catch fish, but you catch like a 5, right? And like a
Hmm.
handful of them. But dude, like 5 pounders, you throw them over your shoulder and keep going at Bacharach. Like you're almost angry that like the first pull is like a big one, and then it gives up. And you're like, it's a 5. I don't want it. Just like we would get it close to the boat and give it slack line, so it would just
It's
pop
like
off
we
and then
do
make
with
another
10
cast.
inchers here. Yeah.
Dude, and we'd say burros machos, which I don't know what that means in his mind, but I guess it's like, thank you very much. So you get one close to the boat, give it slack, and if it came off, you'd be like, all right, thank you, and then just keep going. But if it wouldn't, you'd be like, like, dang it, like I
Hmm.
actually have to touch this 4 pounder. Like this is becoming too much work. Like, take it
Unreal.
away from me. I don't want to see this thing. It's cool.
Problems.
Yeah, exactly. That is cool, dude. Well, yeah, that would be fun to have a listener trip down there, man. That sure would be. I'm sure there's a few light bulbs going off in people's heads. Still, kind of weird that you were the only one down there. Not gonna lie, dude. But
That's what made it great. That's the best part.
I hear you. I hear you. That's cool. Well, dude, that's awesome, man. And glad your back's doing good. You're back here for Christmas. To turn the page a little bit from that, I was going to ask you guys, with the holidays coming up, with Christmas coming up, do you guys have any like Christmas traditions or memories, fishing related, either as a kid or as an adult, that like stand out? Did you ever decide to go fishing on Christmas Day, or did you ever get as a kid, a Christmas fishing present that was like really special? I didn't give you guys any time to think about this, but anything off the top of your head?
Yeah, I think of one. It's crazy because I was probably 18, and I wanted a slow gear ratio reel, and it was an Abu Garcia round reel that was like 3.8 gear ratio. It was like the slowest
Nice.
thing ever.
Yeah.
And what a clunker those things are, dude. Like, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? Like
Well, just like as far as reels back then, not
back
Abu
then,
Garcia
yes.
now, right? Yeah,
No,
that's
yeah, look
right.
at you throwing.
Yeah. And that's why I didn't want to say I caught him on a Rapala crankbait. I was like, do I need to like,
That's fine. Well, the
No,
bill broke anyway, so yeah.
no, this was, I think it was the 5500 Cs were the silver ones. Do you even remember those big round
I
reels
never
like
had
that?
one, dude. I honestly,
Yeah,
I did have one round reel. My first bait cast reel ever was round, but it was low profile already. By
gotcha.
the time I got into bass fishing, it was low profiles all I ever had.
Yeah, I mean, those were the sought after reels when I was first starting to fish. And I remember getting the slow gear ratio one. It was like gold in color. And yeah, I don't remember being that impressed with it after that, but I was so stoked to get it.
Nice.
To the point that I went fishing. It had to be maybe the day after Christmas Day, and my sister was with me, and it was on Bartlett Lake, and the lake was way, way down. And it literally took us an hour and a half to get off the water because there was one little teeny ramp. The lake was so
oh,
low. So
And
I remember,
everybody was loading up.
yes, I
Oh, dude, what a
remember.
nightmare.
Yeah, yeah. So, but whatever.
That's cool. Hey, vividly
Christmas
remember it. That's
gifts and
awesome.
fishing were like, dude, I'd be so stoked when I was younger, just waiting for something fishing wise. So
Yeah, that's
I'm sure
cool.
there's some
Yeah.
young kids or just anybody just anxious right now waiting for their Christmas gift that's fishing related.
how about you,
That's
Josh?
it. Yeah, it does suck now because I don't get any fishing gifts because I don't want them, right? Like I'm pretty
Correct.
spoiled, dude. I've got everything fishing wise, and like, everyone knows don't get him anything for fishing because it's, he's got what he needs for that. But I mean, as a kid, dude, I lived in the Bass Pro Shops catalog, right? And I would look at, it was all about reels, just like you, dude. And I would just look through all the different reels. And, one thing that was a big Christmas thing for a couple years was on electronics. You guys remember Eagle fish
Yep.
finders?
Yep.
Oh,
So it was the Eagle Fishmark 320. We had this aluminum boat when I was a teenager, right? And the Eagle Fishmark 320 was like at the time a
GPS.
pretty legit graph for the money. It was $200, dude, and it had, I believe it had GPS,
I think it did.
and
320 had GPS, right?
it was just a quality sonar, dude. Like it was a good quality sonar for $200. So got one year for the back of the boat, and then the next year we got one for the front of the boat, dude. So I remember the Eagle Fishmark 320 well. And then the other best fishing Christmas gift I ever got was a guide trip, dude. I got a guide trip to go with Ken Levy. If you guys remember Ken's Fishing Guide
Yep.
Service, he unfortunately passed away, probably 10 years ago, 8 years ago, maybe. But man, he was really instrumental for me as a young fisherman. I fished with him on that. So my parents got me a guide trip with him, and I just kind of latched on to him, and he helped me out a lot. After that, I would call him for fishing advice, and he had hooked me up with some gear and stuff like that. And he really did teach me a lot. So that was probably, as far as a gift as a kid that helped me along in fishing, that was the biggest one for sure. Is there anything popping up in your head, Nick?
well, so my birthday is December 27th, right? So I've
Coming
always
right
had
up.
the Christmas birthday, and I share it with my brother. So growing up, but I look back on it pretty fondly, honestly. And luckily, my brother and I have both been avid diehard fishermen since, the beginning. And so my parents were cool. They kind of pivoted. It was always winter break, so we didn't have school. So we'd start going on trips for like kind of being like the gift. And so, man, we went on some fun, midwinter fishing destinations. And there was a period in like when I was young. I remember it was the year I turned 12 or 13. We went to Cabo, and I remember at that time, like, dude, reading Saltwater Angler, and like as a little kid, all I wanted to do was catch a huge fish. Like I just wanted to catch, like it's like every little kid's dream. You just want to catch like a blue marlin, right? Like I want to catch a 1,500-pound marlin and brag to my friends about it. And so we went to Cabo, and I remember we went on like an offshore boat, and I didn't get seasick that time because I was always getting seasick. That was kind of the downer. But I remember we had a magical day, and Cabo now more than ever is magical for striped marlin. I mean, you can go there and catch them out of a panga and catch 15 of them.
Really?
I mean, like the marlin fishing off of Cabo and then like up into Mag Bay, which is going into the Gulf of California from there. If anyone wants to go marlin fishing, hit us up and I can get you dialed in. It's nuts. But I remember as a 12-year-old kid, dude, I'm sitting on this huge cabin cruiser boat. They had a photo album in the like inside the cabin of like things that a 12-year-old shouldn't be seen. But I remember that day, dude, we freaking caught them. Like we caught so many marlin, and like I have the one that's mounted on my wall was from that trip. It's a complete carbon copy striped marlin. There's nothing significant about its size or anything, but every time I look at that fish, I remember thinking like I had arrived on the scene, dude. I was at the pinnacle of like I thought I was going to be in magazines after that because I had, sat on the back of somebody else's boat while they trolled live bait through like the equivalent of like a stocked trout pond, right? Like there's like zero skill required. But yeah, that was such a fun time in our lives. And yeah, man, it's Christmas is cool like that. It can create an opportunity to put a smile on someone's face in a meaningful way. And hopefully there's a lot of that going on today and tomorrow.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. Yeah, that's great. It sounds like we were all lucky to be into fishing at a young age like that. And hey, nothing's changed. So
And let me
go
say one
ahead.
thing quickly. I will say to build off what you mentioned, Josh, and anytime I meet like friends that have kids that are interested in fishing, what you just described is so true. And for me personally too, man, get someone a trip with a guide who knows what's up. Because even if they don't have a day where like, you catch 300 fish and they're all 10 pounders, you will learn so much, right? And there's a possibility to make a friendship or at least like a mentorship that can point, like you can
Yep.
accelerate the learning curve 10x. Like do that. Like, man, anyone listening that wants to get someone else, like book them a trip with Rob or Josh or somewhere else with a good guide.
Yeah, just
It's the
any
truth,
guide. It's a great point. I mean,
but a
it's
good
like
one.
because yeah, if you go out and it's a struggle, the kid's going to lose interest, right? So yeah, just one good trip could definitely really pour gas
Fertilize
on a
it.
fire for sure.
Yep, fertilize the seed. So yeah, do that to anyone that's trying to figure out a gift for a young person or even just someone that wants to get into fishing. Shorten their learning curve and book a guide.
Yeah, that's good. With that being said, okay, so if you could ask fishing Santa Claus for one fishing gift at this point in your lives, guys, what are you asking for? It could be anything. I'll start. Okay.
Okay.
Let you guys think about it. I'm going to ask him to put smallmouth back into Apache.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Apache Lake out
whoa.
here for our listeners back east. It used to be like a 50-50 mix of smallmouth and largemouth. And it was awesome to fish that place. And it's good now when it's warm, but now you get out there in the wintertime without the smallmouth and it's not nearly as fun. So I missed that. That was our best smallmouth fishing in central Arizona. So
If
I'm
if
going to go to Bass Pro, sit on Santa's lap, and ask him for smallmouth and Apache.
dude, if that's the kind of gift you're gonna get, I want no wakeboard boats on Saguaro. What do you think
Thank
of
you.
that?
Oh,
Yes, yes, that's beautiful. I love it.
Wrapped up in a big old bow.
Yeah, buddy,
oh
that's
man.
hilarious, dude.
It exists in Baccarat. Go there, Rob.
Rob's
Well,
gonna
you
go to
guys,
sleep tonight and just dream of a big heap of wakeboard boats burning and the smell of fiberglass, and he'll be so happy.
yeah.
Yes.
Oh, I can't even add to that. I mean, you two just knocked it so far out of the park. This is like T-ball
We're
coach
trying to
pitch
make
for me.
fishing in Arizona great again, dude.
Well, I'll vote for you.
Yeah.
Nick wants
I
another DT10 with a lip on it.
Yeah, no kidding. Can I go back? And I don't even need to catch that fish. I'll
Hey,
gladly just take it from him.
Nick wants a fishing trip on Mars, dude. That's his next thing. He's gonna
Yeah.
he's gonna go fishing on another planet next,
Dude,
dude.
Elon Musk hooked me up, bro. I read
Yeah.
a quick article in one of my favorite fishing magazines where they showcased when Lewis and Clark were doing their big exploration. They actually commissioned a guy to come along who was their biology expert, and he was there to catalog all the new species along the way. What a fun thing to read, dude. That guy, he called everything a trout because that was all their perspective. They didn't know what they were encountering. But like, I mean, starting from catching catfish on like the Midwest and like those
Mm.
rivers, and then working west and catching, I'm assuming, we're like trout and salmon. Like they Lewis and Clark's journals actually would talk about like how good he was and like he was sourcing like product. Like that would have been pretty cool, right? So your comment about fishing on Mars, it would be fun to be the person who like goes through an area first and sees what's up.
No kidding. Yeah,
So
yeah.
hook me up,
Very
Santa.
interesting. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, yeah. Nick's going to be the first to explore a new area, the first to fish a new place for sure.
Let's do
He's
it.
gonna take
South
a bus.
America.
He's gonna take a bus there too.
That's the experience, dude. It's so fun. Man, coming home on the bus was not fun though. Yeah, there were so many people that I had to just take what I could get. And I got on the economy series bus, dude. And like my seat was small. There was 6 stops, like 2 checkpoints. It was a journey coming home, which completely unnecessary. Don't let that deter anyone. Just book a
Fly.
freaking plane ticket and fly. Yep, exactly. So enough said.
All right. Well, hey, it's been a good episode. Cool to hear those stories. I got more that I'll save. I can hear everyone stirring in the house and time for some family time. But do you guys have anything else before we wrap this up?
No, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everyone, and
Yeah, it's
enjoy.
probably see you guys in 2024, right?
Yep.
All
For
right,
sure.
guys. Thanks again to the listeners. Thanks for hanging around. If you guys are listening on iTunes, this is available on YouTube. You can check it out. Just search Anglers Happy Hour on YouTube and you'll find it there. And yeah, hope you guys have a great holiday, and we'll be back at you guys really soon. Thanks again.